I'm Gabe Abshire. This is Connecting the Journey. Welcome back to Connecting the Journey. Remember, the premise of this show is that as entrepreneurs and really as just people in general, we're always looking to the next greatest thing. We're always looking forward. We're always looking for the next biggest thing, but very, very seldom do we look back at the points in our life that got us to where we are today. And I feel like that you cannot move forward with gratitude unless you look backwards. Backwards is where the gratitude is. You got to look and measure back where you came from so you can move forward with gratitude. So speaking of that, I'm very excited today to have our new Chief Revenue Officer, Sajag Patel, on the show. This is going to be one of my moments that I'll look back on in my career of bringing our team together, both Jason and Sajag, here at Utility Concierge. So I'm excited to have him on the show, get to talk with him, get to know him, get to know his why, his passions, and what makes him such an amazing person. So Jack, great to have you.
Great being here, Gabe.
So how's your week been?
It's been good.
It's been good. So Sajag's been on the team now for about coming up on a month, and the energy that he's brought to the team has been amazing. Every time I get to talk to him on the phone, I can feel him smiling over the phone, and in turn makes me smile. And he's just a very unique person. He brings a ton of energy to anyone he's around. He has a background as a coach, been in the real estate industry for a while, but we're just going to get to know Sajag and see what makes you tick. How about that?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, look, let me ask you something. We're going to get to, where you grew up and what your childhood was like, but like, what are you really passionate about?
Yeah, my big passion, my big why, as people say it, is, I have a nonprofit, right? So my dream is that over the next 10 years, I'm able to educate 100,000 kids. Every day when I wake up, that's what I think about, is what am I doing to make an impact towards the future of, what this country has to offer, and all countries actually. So, being able to go provide educational opportunities for kids is really, really important for me. And that's why my foundation is called CEO Kids Foundation, and CEO stands for Creating Educational Opportunities.
Awesome. So where'd that come from? I know you've had a career in real estate, you've had lots of different things you've done, but I think that probably stems somewhere in your childhood. Where'd that passion come from to educate and inspire others?
Yeah, look, growing up, I grew up in a small town. My graduating class was 100. My parents and the whole family actually had to work to make a living, right? So when they came to the States, they literally came here with nothing, and we bought a business. My parents did, and then me and my sister, we worked in that business every day from the age of 5, and all the way up until we went to college. So we had that work ethic instilled in us, but also going to college, like my parents did a lot for us so that we could attend college. And had they not done that, we probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do it. And I know there's a lot of kids out there who want the opportunity to be educated, yet they just don't have that, right? Or their parents don't have the ability to make means ends. And so for me, it's really important that I want to be able to go create those opportunities for kids who want that education, but just don't have the means to do it.
Yeah. So you saw the sacrifice that your parents made to be able to send you and your siblings to college, but what was it like growing up in that family, and was there an entrepreneurial spirit there?
Well, my dad was a hotel owner, right? So we had a small hotel, and yeah, it was right out of the gate. I watched my dad build this business from nothing, and the things that we were able to do growing up was because of that business. So growing up in that business environment and watching what my parents had to sacrifice so that we can get to school was the most important thing.
And was that a family affair, running that business? Were y'all working in the business?
Just the 4 of us, no employees.
Yeah?
Yep.
So y'all took care of everything?
Everything from housekeeping, laundry, the front desk, everything.
What's something you look back on, and what did that teach you, right? You're running a small business with your family, you're doing everything under the sun. What was your main takeaway? What did that teach you being as a young kid?
There's the 2 biggest lessons. One was customer service, right? Customer service is the utmost important thing when it comes to the hospitality industry. When you provide great customer service, you get repeat referral business, right? So watching the way that my dad and my mom serviced all of our guests and treated them truly like family. It was a small motel of 21, units, so it wasn't like we had a big 100-unit Holiday Inn. It was a small place, so we got to know everyone. It was the same clientele that kept coming to us, and they were like family. So the hospitality and customer service was the most important thing. The second was work ethic, right? Is when you work hard, you can have anything you want in life, but it takes work.
Yeah. And where was the hotel at?
A small town outside of central Pennsylvania called Phillipsburg.
So did you have a lot of people that were traveling for business that were there every week, or was it a vacation spot?
It was hunting and fishing.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. So you got a lot of hunters.
A lot of
in
hunters.
there.
A lot of deer hunting was huge, and every year during doe hunting, archery, and buck season, I mean, those were the same people we saw every year.
Okay, awesome. Well, what so going to college, where'd you go to college at?
University of Pittsburgh.
Okay, so going to college, you probably had a different mindset than other people. It was a privilege to be there. You were there to respect your parents and get an education. What was that experience like for you going to school?
Well, I had the same experience that a lot of first-year college students have, right? So I kind of screwed up my first year at my parents' expense, and then I took full ownership of it. I went out and got 3 jobs. I had 3 jobs going through college, and I said, okay, after year 1, I really screwed up. I wasn't going to let my parents be on the hook for another bill. And so I went out and got 3 jobs. I worked nights and weekends when most people were out partying. Didn't mean that I didn't go party. I still party, but I was still at work the next day in the hospital because I was an assistant physical therapist assistant. So, I'd wake up every Saturday and Sunday and worked in the hospital from 8 to 5 after my first year in college.
Oh, wow. So do you think you're going to give your kids the same latitude?
100%.
I think about that a lot too, right? Am I going to give them the first semester to have some fun and acclimate?
They can have fun. I mean, I tell them now, but the work ethic that my kids don't have to have the same experience that me and my sister went through. Yet even right now, I've told my oldest, he's 16, I'm like, you got to go get a job. This summer you're working. You need to understand how hard it is to go make money. You have what you have, but we just took a trip to India, and they actually got to see how privileged they are after seeing how people in India, live their life.
Yeah.
So it was a great lesson for them to learn.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. We travel a lot with our kids, and we want them to see a different perspective, get out of this bubble that we've put them
Yep.
in. And my son's 14, and he started washing cars and things like that, and he gets it, but it's more challenging, I think, in this time to be able to show your kids like the value of money and them getting a job and things like that, because the people they see are influencers on social whatever, and they're
That's
making
right.
money, and half the stuff that they see there isn't reality. So I think the kids that can communicate, that can get out there and work, are going to be light years ahead of kids that can't.
Yep. And my youngest, we used to joke about it, but when we were in Ohio, I used to take my kids to all my investment properties, right? So all my apartment buildings, they'd go in, they'd see me pull out the laundry coins, and then Dad let them go home and count the coins, wrap them all up in the coin wrappers. And then they saw how I treated the tenants, right, in each one of the units. And then my youngest actually really took on to it. He'd be like, well, Dad, we have a tenant who's not paying. Shouldn't we, ask him to pay? And he'd ask me really good questions, because not all the properties, they weren't nearby 10, 15 minutes. Some of my properties were 2 hours away, and on that 2-hour car ride we'd have great conversations about the properties. So I would teach him about improvements to the property and how that allowed us to go get greater rents and why you make those type of investments. So he really took a liking to it, and we still talk about it today, even though we're not close to the properties. Right, but when we moved here, I bought storage unit facilities, so I started teaching them about that. So I'm slowly teaching them the value of, money, but also the basics of business behind it. And so a lot of times now, even my oldest in his high school classes, he's going through a lot of business classes, and he's grabbed onto the concept of business really fast because of all the conversations we have.
Yeah.
Which is really great to see, because he's one of the top kids in all of his business classes.
Yeah, and it's fun to see them, have that background of you said customer service, right? And the way you treat people in general, right? I mean, why are you not beating on that guy's door to pay you? Because he's a human. He's got stuff going on.
That's right.
And it's better to work with him than just try to kick him out, because you got to fill that door, right?
Yeah, and you got to understand what's going on in their life, right? Most people aren't trying to take advantage of you. You just have to take a step back and try to find out what's going on in their life and how can you actually help them. And when you can help them, they'll make their money right.
Yeah, exactly. And be very glad to do it and
Yep.
and honor what they say they're going to do.
That's
for
right.
sure. So after college, what was your first gig out of college?
I was a software engineer.
Okay.
So I worked for a small startup company in Pittsburgh. We created educational software for higher ed, and so worked in that for 4 years. We had over 100,000 users on it when I left. Just got burnt out.
So education,
Education.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So like an online college?
We
or-
did online digital portfolios.
Okay.
And then we had two applications. One was for the students so that they could file all of their work going literally starting from high school all the way up and through they're done with college, so that they have an electronic resume rather than just a paper resume that tried to prove what they did. We built out an online electronic resume where they had sample of all the work that they did over time.
That'll make them stand out in the market.
Yeah, and then for the universities, we had all the universities for accreditation purposes had certain standards that they had to meet. So we built the application that allowed them to attach those online electronic portfolios and samples so that they can meet state accreditation.
Okay. And you said you left, just got burned out? Just,
7 days a week, 18-hour days.
For 4
For
years?
4 years.
yeah, that's tougher than college.
That was tougher than college.
Well, but that's, I mean, what'd you learn? What was your takeaway from that? What was your lesson learned in that role?
I mean, those are a lot of lessons, right? But, most people coming out of college, they'll take the offer that gave them the most money, right? For me, I mean, and I say this humbly, is that, I switched majors my last year. And I was a pre-med, pre-physical therapy, and then last year I went into computers, right? And going through that phase, though, I started interning for this company that I ended up working with. And, I was up against 2 Carnegie Mellon students. Well, those guys are smart. They're brilliant, right? They're engineers. And I'm like, well, crap, how am I going to beat these guys out, right? So when I was talking to their CEO, I said, look, I just want an opportunity. Give me a chance, and I'll work for free. And so I took the summer internship and worked for free. The first day on the job, they gave me a 1,400-page book and said, read it, learn it, and we want you to go build an internal portal for us. And I said, great. Read the book in a week and built it for them in a month, and they're like, oh, shit. And then so they're the ones who had me prototype this application that we went out and eventually built.
Nice. So I got to back up a little bit. You skipped over you were pre-med until your last year. What was the catalyst for that switch? And how'd your parents feel about it?
So, culturally, our parents kind of put this thing on us saying, hey, you're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer, right? I'm like, all right, well, I got the doctor thing, right? I like helping people out. I worked in the hospitals, but, the greatest gift that I gave myself, I think, was working in the hospital. I worked in both medical records as one job, and then I worked in the PT department as a second job, and then I had a computer lab job as my third job, right? So those were the 3 jobs that I had for the 3 years. But working in the hospitals as a PT assistant, I realized within that first year, I wasn't for me. And the reason was emotionally, the pain that I went through, just taking care of the elderly, going through that, and watching how they were being treated, not because of, that they were just trying to be difficult for people. They were in that much pain, and nurses do a phenomenal job, right? So don't take this the wrong way, but they just didn't care. They didn't care about them. And so, every time I'd have to go get someone to bring them down to the PT department, I would tell the nurses, don't bother. I got it. And I would literally pick up the old lady or the old man out of the bed, lift them up, put them in a wheelchair, and I'd bring them down myself. I wouldn't let the nurses bring them down, because when they'd come down, the patients would come down and I'd talk with them. Again, it's that hospitality side. I would actually just listen to them, because a lot of them, they didn't have family that was regularly there with them. And so for me, just watching them go through it was really painful and hard as a college student. But then, I got attached to some of the people that I was taking care of. And one of them was a cancer patient who we ended up losing. She was a teacher that ended up passing away from cancer. And at that moment, I said, this is too much. Mentally, it was too draining for me, that I was like, as much as I'd love to sit here and help people out, I don't know if I could do it myself. And that's when I made the decision that, it's time to go into computers.
Because I think, like I said, nurses doing a phenomenal job, but I think it would be a challenge to get emotionally connected to your patients, and you just see that every day,
That's right.
And you have to not, and then when you're not connected to them, then the way you treat them is probably different. So
Yeah.
I can see that. Did you see a lot of, did you see doctors and see what your future was going to be? I think, I look at folks that are going to med school and like it's kind of laid out, like what to expect. Like, did you look at that and go, that's not for me?
Yeah, and look, I mean, one of my classes going through PT was I had anatomy class, right? So, well, we actually had a cadaver that we got to study. That wasn't my thing.
Yeah,
That was quickly not my thing.
nice. Well, I definitely understand on all fronts of those. I think it takes a very special person to be in that field. And
It does.
It's emotionally.
And there's a tremendous amount of gratitude. Like, I talk about that experience, and it's not a negative experience. It's actually a really positive experience. It just talks about the strength that the nurses and doctors have to be able to do that job.
Yeah, I agree. Well, after the software company, what was your next move?
So after that burnout, my dad had just sold that motel that, I grew up in, my sister grew up in, and then he was getting bored, and he's like, let's go do something together. So we went and bought a foreclosed hotel, and I took it on to say, okay, we're going to go do it. Went and got financing for it. We did $1.5 million renovation. We franchised it, took the hotel from doing $600,000 to doing $1.3 million in 3 years, and I said, all right, I'm bored.
Because it was running itself. You set it up, running itself.
It wasn't running itself. I mean, I was still the GM of it, but again, we were able to build that business up and take business from our competitors because of customer service. We started providing services that the other hotels wouldn't, all centered around the guest and what their needs were.
Like what? Give me some examples.
A simple thing. I mean, when we did a lot of wedding parties. Well, when wedding parties would come in, they don't always just want to hang around there locally. They'd want to go off-site to a bar and go party and then come back. So we added a shuttle service to and from these local bars and stuff. Just those little things helped us, gain a lot of business. Yeah. We didn't have an airport shuttle as a hotel that was 3 miles away from the airport. So that shuttle service, we expanded to offering transportation to and from the airport, which allowed us to go get airline business that we didn't have before. Yeah. So it was just the little things that we did that gave us a huge impact.
It's always the simplest things that change the experience for the customer. And that's what people remember, right? The experience. I say that a lot of times with our business now. We don't deliver customer service. We deliver an experience, because moving's emotional. And an experience is something you remember, right? And you want to keep coming back for it.
Well, and going back to that, it's in the hotel, it's the same thing, right? So we had a guy that came to Cleveland every time for the Indians game, every time. And he'd been coming there. But he was treated as a guest. We started treating him like family, and it was a completely different experience for him. So when we sold that property, he was literally in tears, because it was like he lost his family. And it was hard for us to even sell that property when we did, was because we were emotionally attached to a lot of our guests. Yeah. Right? So it was hard on my mom and dad. It was hard on me. It was hard on our staff, because we treated our staff the same way. Mm-hmm. We had the same employees from 2004 up until we sold it in 2016.
Oh, wow. So y'all had that for a while. Y'all had that. I think y'all had that. So you had it for a good time. And did your folks run it?
My mom and dad.
So that was your first, I guess, was that your first exposure to the real estate world? And is that what got you into real estate?
Yep. So like I said, I got bored 3 years in, so I was like, all right, I got to go do something. So actually, before I got into real estate, I started a coffee business. So I bought a franchise coffee shop, got into it, opened it, and that's when the housing market crashed. And in that time frame, it was a newer franchise, learned a ton of lessons on it, but they had filed bankruptcy in that. So I ended up having to shut my coffee shop down, lost $250,000. So I'm like, oh crap.
Damn.
Like, here we go. I'm at the rock bottom now, right? So that moment was the moment that I said, all right, I got to go do something. I'm not going to just, have my one hotel. At that point, I had a second hotel too, but I was like, that's not going to cut it. Like, I need to go do something. And so got into real estate when everyone was getting out of the market, because short sales foreclosures was a big thing. And
so it was like 09 or 10? When
2009.
2000. So right in the middle of it. Perfect.
Right in the middle of it, right? So tremendous amount of inventory, properties weren't moving as much, and everyone's like, dude, why are you getting into real estate? I got in thinking I was going to do commercial real estate because buying and selling hotels, I'm looking at the commission checks that the brokers were making, and I'm like, man, I can go do this, right? I understand business. I understand the hotel business. Like, why am I not getting these? Well, quickly I learned that, oh God, commercial agents are actually like starving right now because they're not able to sell anything in '09, right? So I got in it and started learning short sales because no one understood short sales. And I'm like, this can't be that hard. So literally on New Year's Eve, I went through a certification program put on by Alex Sharfin. They called the CDPE, and I went and got certified in distressed properties.
So that's how you cut your teeth in real estate.
That's how I cut my teeth. I started going out and teaching. From what I learned, I started teaching, and I started getting referrals from other agents, and then I helped close those properties and saving their family members from foreclosure. And then I built my entire business off of it.
And you mentioned, we've talked about this before, and you mentioned the reason you were successful in that is because you weren't, I guess, cutthroat or really trying to make a buck off of it. You went in with a servant's mindset to help these families get into a home.
Yeah, rookie of the year, my first year, sold 23 homes. My average sales price was $55,000. I went home with $18,000.
With 55 transactions, is that what you said?
23 transactions.
23 transactions, $55,000 average. Wow.
So it wasn't about the money.
Yeah.
Again, it was that whole service is helping people through those distressed properties. Literally, each one of those short sale files would take 40, 50 hours of back and forth with the banks and all the paperwork collection to walk home with a check that was $600 or $700.
Yeah, that's not why people get into real estate.
That's not why people get into real estate.
Well, that foundation you built there, well, how'd that help you in your next endeavor in real estate, or did you stay in short sales, or where'd you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, so short sales lasted for about 3 years, right? 3-4 years, and then my business just kept doubling year after year. So after 2.5, 3 years in, I hired my first agent as my buyer's agent, because at that point I was doing 77 sales on my own, and they were all short sales. So I was putting in a ton of hours working around the clock to process all of those, but I didn't have time to run buyers. So I needed some leverage. So I brought on a buyer's agent, and then my first buyer's agent and I sold over 100 homes that next year. And she's still with me today.
Oh, nice.
So she runs my team today while I'm out doing other things.
What was your like, you said, look, I got to do something bigger and better than just the hotels. Like what was that experience like getting into real estate? What was who helped you? Who were some of your mentors in the early days?
So 2 years into real estate, I mean, literally I went and hired a coach, right? So I went through this boot camp sales program that Keller Williams had to offer called BOLD, Business Objective Life by Design. And I went through it, and the coaches just kept talking about hire a coach. And I'm like, I need a coach. So I hired a coach 2 years into that, and I had a coach all the way up until 2019 when I went to actually work for Keller Williams in the corporate office. Up until that point, though, I had a coach, and every year my business would just keep increasing. That's because that's what coaches do. They point out all the blind spots. But the pivotal moment there was in 2015, 5 years of having a coach. My coach at that time said, hey, you need to be a coach. And I was like, a what? I'm like, I'm not capable of being a coach. And he's like, no, you're coaching me on these calls. I'm not coaching you. And we're still really good friends today, right? Yeah. And so he's the one who got me into coaching. And I went through the process of becoming a coach for Keller Williams and the MAPS organization. And within 90 days, I became a coach. The first month that I was a coach, they gave me 30 clients. So I became a full-time coach, and I was like, okay, I wasn't prepared for this, right? I went from still selling in real estate to having 30 clients, which that's almost 3.5 days worth of work. And I'm like, oh, wow. And I'm still selling. But that became my passion. Like, I started really falling in love with helping people, look at their businesses, grow their businesses, and all of them, like almost all of them I still keep in touch with today, even though I don't coach them. They still reach out when they need help. But I started growing in that coaching experience that in 2000, and it was 2.5 years in, I got the honor of going under the mentorship of Tony DeCello, who's one of the best real estate coaches out there. And he took me under his wing, and literally within 12 months, I learned so much from him, and with my business background, I became the third executive coach inside the MAPS organization. So you become an executive coach when you have a wait list of clients who want to coach with you.
Okay.
And that gave you permission to go increase your fee and become one. And so I was the third one who was able to become an executive coach. And then I was an executive coach for probably less than a year, and then I got a call from his wife, who was actually the president of the MAPS organization, and she's like, I want you to be a head coach, and I want you to train other coaches. And at that point, I was like, okay, I really not sure I want to do this. I'm not even sure I'm capable of being a head coach. Like, I'm just kind of doing my own thing, helping clients. But I became a head coach, started helping coaches, hone in on their skills and help them improve. And, then there was some leadership transitions at Keller Williams, and we were literally at the interim president's house, and we were masterminding around what are the different things that we could do to help the business grow and look at it differently. And so we had taken on this task force, and at that time, a lady by the name of Monica Reynolds, who's well known in the real estate industry, she joined my task force. And we had never spoken up until that point, yet we were coaches together inside of MAPS since I had joined him even previously. She didn't know who I was, I didn't know who she was. But we got on, we took on that project, and the project was that we were going to go create a model to help our coaches become millionaires, because Gary Keller wrote the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Well, there was no model around the millionaire real estate coach. So we took that project on, and she's like, all right, let's think about it for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll circle in and we'll get together. So we did a call on a Saturday morning a couple weeks later, and I came in prepared. I had the whole model written out. So she jumped on that call, and she's like, all right, where do you want to start? And I'm like, well, I'm going to present something to you and want your thoughts. Presented the model to her, made some tweaks, and she's at the tail end of that call, she's like, wherever you go, I'm going with you. And I'm like, what? I'm like, the Monica Reynolds just told me that? I'm like, this is crazy, like, because she's a well-known icon in real estate. And so, didn't really think of it. I went about my business, still selling real estate, still coaching. And then she calls me a couple months later, and she's like, hey, I'm jumping on a plane. I'm going to see Gary. And I'm like, what? She's like, I'm going to see Gary, and I'm telling him you're coming with me. I'm like, I'm not jumping on a plane right now. Like, what are you talking about? She's like, no, you're coming with me to run MAPS. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I don't need you to say yes or no. You're just going to say yes, and we'll talk about the details later.
And this is how many years into being a coach?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. And so you're running your team while you're coaching, and coaching is lucrative, right? But I'm guessing most coaches have a team also. Is that right?
They do, but once they become coaches, most of them decide to be full-time coaches.
Okay. And so you got to have a passion for helping people. And I can see, and you keep going. I'm not a coach. I'm not this, but man, I'm telling you, your energy is infectious.
Yeah.
Right. I'll tell you, when I did, kind of some of your references calls, I led them with, "Is this guy really as awesome as he seems to be?" And they said, "No, it's better." Right. And it's just, I can see how someone just gets the energy and it's infectious. So what did, obviously Gary had good things to say, but how'd that turn out when Monica went down and talked to Gary?
So she went down and talked to Gary. He didn't know who I was. And so we set up a couple of Zoom calls before our big event. So she flew down there in July. Our big event was in August. And so we met a couple times, presented the model. He liked it. We tweaked a couple things that he wanted to tweak, got their approval on it, and he was good to go. So I was already in the role, and he puts me up on stage, and he's like, I'm going to interview you and Monica separately because you guys are taking on this role. We're going to interview in front of everyone. I'm like, oh,
how many
crap.
people?
There's 8,000 people in this,
small
right?
Crowd.
Small
yeah,
thing.
Small crowd.
So we have this thing called career visioning, and he literally took Monica and I through the process right on stage in front of these people.
And what was the outcome? I mean, is it what it sounds like? You're casting a vision for your career, and he's walking through your goals.
Yeah, he's getting to know you, like just similar to the assessment that you did. We have our own thing called Keller Personality Assessment, KPA, and he literally went through that on stage, the descriptive review, and he started asking questions around every single statement and digging in deeper.
He's interviewing you.
So he's literally interviewing you and getting to know my whole background, because he knew nothing about me, Monica's whole background and everything about us, right there in front of 8,000 people.
Wow. And you're very comfortable in front of 8,000
Hell no.
people, right? No, not at this point, right?
No.
Man, that's a hell. That's got to go down as a heck of a job interview.
It was, and people still talk about it today. In fact, I was just right before this, I was on a call with 79 Teams, and one of the people brought it up that he was sitting in the audience and saw that interview.
Well, it obviously worked out well. So what was the next phase that you went on to run the MAPS program?
So Monica and I came in. She was the president. I was the executive director of strategy. We worked side by side. We helped turn things around. And then it was in August of 21 where then they moved me into being the vice president of communities, which was overseeing like our luxury land. And we took that from 4 communities to 12. And then today it's at 16. And then I was in that role for maybe not even 9 months. And then again, I got promoted to being the head of coaching communities and or Keller Williams University. I was in that role for 6 weeks before Gary Keller called me into his office and said, "Hey, I want you to be my COO." I was like, all right, I don't even know what's happening.
Man, it seems like you've had a run of 8 years of like, not me, like this. This isn't. This is
I
what
don't
I'm meant
look
to do. I mean, but people see something in you.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I don't look for opportunities, right? Like I stay focused on the things that I control, and what I control is how I show up for people. And I don't look for the accolades. I don't want the attention. I don't want the stage time. That's not who I am. Even this is uncomfortable for me, right? But for me, what's important is, am I showing up as the best version of myself that I'm able to help people around me?
Where'd that come from? Like that's something deep inside of you, right? I mean, we talked a little about, your upbringing, but something had to have clicked that's your purpose, that's your passion, that's what you're living your life by.
Yeah, I can't say that there's an exact moment, but I watched my dad do this over and over again when we were growing up. It was regardless of how much we were struggling, if he saw someone else struggle, he'd always help them out.
And show up for him.
He would always show up for him.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's deeply rooted
Yep.
in your DNA, and it's something that you saw time and time again for it to be that strong in you,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot. I mean, Keller Williams is a huge educational company, lots of learning opportunities, but I think you bringing that passion just, change your outlook.
Yeah.
Here's a fun question. How do you, we talked about all the highlights and this just, amazing career at KW. How do you handle failure? Did you have any? Like we talked about the highlights, but can you think back about a time during that run where you either doubted yourself or there was a failure that hit you?
There's failures every day, right? So, I mean, that's the only way you learn and you improve. So, I don't look at anything as, Gary always shared this with us, is you don't succeed your way to success. You fail your way to success, right? And if you're not failing, then you're not growing. Yep. And that really resonated with me as like, look, if I'm not failing, then I'm not really doing anything outside of the bounds of what people have always told me to do.
Yeah.
So what am I doing to actually be different? Yeah. And when you're willing to fail, and you know that you're willing to learn from those failures and then make the adjustments, everything takes care of itself.
Yeah, you got to get outside of that comfort zone.
You do,
right? It's hard to fall fail in a comfy spot.
Yeah,
So, I mean, had no idea that Gary's going to ask you to come and be his COO. What was that moment like?
One is, at first I didn't believe it because I got the call when I was driving home and they're like, "Hey, can you come back to the office?" It was already 6 p.m. at night. And I was like, well, I'm already halfway home. They're like, all right, don't worry. Just Gary wants to see you first thing in the morning. Right. So I'm like, okay, crap.
That's
Am
fun.
I getting
You got
fired
all,
or what's
all
happening?
night with
right?
that. Right.
So I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I had no clue. And when I sat down, that's what he told me. And I'm like, okay. I just had to sit there and listen for, a few minutes and let the silence let me do some processing, because I'm a processor, right? Like I don't just respond to things. And then, the first thing I said is, Gary, I got to think about this, but here's what's important. I need to be able to make a positive impact in people's lives. if that's being taken away from me, I don't want to do it.
Meaning if you couldn't coach,
Yeah.
you couldn't have that.
If I
have that
couldn't coach,
community.
if I couldn't actually make an impact on the organization, if I couldn't make decisions that would make a positive impact, that wasn't something for me.
Yeah. And you were obviously able to do that. How did he take that though? I mean, that's a unique
appreciated it.
response
Yeah.
to that question.
He appreciated it, and I think at that point, I think he knew who I was, and he knew, like, even when I was in MAPS, I was still coaching his top teams. And, they talked about it enough that I think he understood the impact that it was making.
Yeah. So how was that working for him? I mean, you were, how many divisions were you managing?
So at one point I had 23 direct reports.
Okay.
Not an ideal situation. Right?
Not an ideal, a little bit overwhelming. But you're an operations guy, right? You're a coach. I mean, how was it working in that environment with him? I can only imagine that he's always full of ideas. He's full of energy. Yep. How was it like managing the idea flow?
Look, I mean, he's probably the smartest guys I've ever met, and every day there was a new idea, right? So when speaking with people like that, you have to understand, well, okay, does he mean really go do it, or does he mean go think about it? Yeah. Right? Or is this a great idea and we're going to put it somewhere in a parking lot, right? So the first couple of weeks I was failing every day. I'm like, God, like I just feel like we're constantly moving in 100 different directions, because it was like, okay, I'd hear something and then I'd start taking action. Then I'd hear something else and I'd start doing it. And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't working. Like, this is going to be a disaster if we keep doing it this way, because it's creating so much chaos. And so I called Mo Anderson up, who was on the board, and his previous CEO. And I was like, all right, tell me how you worked with this guy. Right? So go to people who've actually worked with them and say, hey, how did you work with them? And she gave me some great coaching advice. And I used that coaching advice to actually be able to make my relationship with Gary better. In that I understood that, okay, the things that he would say, I'd make a list of them, and then I'd wait to see if he'd say it again and follow up on it, or if that idea just kind of fell off. Yeah. But I always had a running list of all the ideas that he had. But that's what allowed me to say, okay, what are we taking action on? What are we not taking action on? So that I didn't constantly pivot teams on what was important. Yeah.
And you were in that role for 3 years?
No, 19 months.
19 months.
19
okay.
months.
So man, that's a huge jump from agent to coaching to having a team to having 23 direct reports. What was your takeaway from it? What was your, I mean, so many questions, like what freaked you out about that? Like what was one of your scariest moments? I mean, that's a big role to fill. That's big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was freaked out about anything. I was the one who, give me the challenge. I'm ready for it. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, your ability to make an impact is your ability to influence leaders, right? And if you trust your people and you empower your leaders to make the right decisions, the job's really not that hard. So for me, those 23 direct reports, it was more of a coaching relationship versus me actually saying, okay, here's what you're going to do, here's what you're going to do. That's what managers do.
Right.
Leaders empower their people to actually go make the right decisions and own the results. And so that's what I loved about that, is that it didn't feel like I had too much. It was because I empowered my leaders. Clients. Yeah.
That's a heck of a way to look at it, man. Because a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people get in a role like that, and it's a power trip, and they're just, they don't have that right approach. So I mean, obviously your EQ was very high, and you learned that through coaching all those teams that you.
Yeah, and if you were to go talk to any of my direct reports, they would all probably tell you the same thing: is that I never spoke over them in meetings. I always gave them the floor, because it was important for me to let my leaders speak. Right. The way they show up and the way that they present themselves and their ability to go present shows their leadership. And I don't need to be the voice of it. Yeah. A lot of times you go into these organizations, you have one person can be in the voice of the entire organization. That's detrimental. Right. Yeah. And you don't realize it until it's too late. And people won't follow you when you run that type of organization. Yeah. People want to be led. And they want the ability to be able to showcase their abilities too. Empower them.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. That's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, you were, and maybe he saw that, right? But you were being, groomed and you're learning along the way, and to step in that role and really look at it as you've got 23 more coaching clients is a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
And had to be maybe stressful, but that was a big role, big shoes to fill.
Well, and I think you've heard me say this before, is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
Right? And with each one of my direct reports, that was the approach I took, is tell me where you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years. What are you doing? Who are you with? What have you accomplished? I want to help you get there.
Yeah.
When you come from that approach, it changes everything. They'll go to fight for you, right? They got your back in any moment that you need them to. So when you need that little extra done, you don't even have to ask. They're ready doing it.
They're ready to do it. Yeah, it's funny. Some of your when I did your reference checks, they were like, listen, A, I'll follow him anywhere, but B, you better leave some time on his calendar because I'm not giving up my coaching. I'm not giving up my session with him because he's a shot of energy in my arm every time I talk to him. So I need him in my life, you know? Well, look, we talked about how we met and a lot of things that you said really resonated. You were referred by someone, and what he told me is like, hey, this guy's an impact player, right? And you take that how you may, but he wants to come in and make a big impact. He loves people. It's his passion. Talked about your charity and how passionate you are about that. And we sat down. We had we spent about a half a day together, and I think I was very candid and transparent and honest about what we were looking for. And man, I left really excited out of that meeting. And then I think we chatted a week or so later, and you was trying to figure out the organization and the roles and whatever. And you just said, "Man, I don't care. I don't care about a title. I just want to come and make an impact."
Yep.
So what excited you about that first conversation that we had?
Well, for me, I just see opportunity, right? So going back to what you just said, though, titles mean nothing, right? And I tell people this all the time is, look, a title's there, it's just outward facing.
Yeah.
It means nothing to the people inside the organization if you're not able to actually make an impact on them, right? So I tell people, when Gary made me the COO, I used to wear a shirt, and we used to joke about it. I told him I was the janitor. I'm like, I'm here to clean shit up, right? and so, some of my team members actually thought it was funny, and they liked it. They actually made me a shirt that said janitor on it, and I wear it proudly, right? But it's truly meaningful in that, anytime you're a part of an organization, don't worry about a title. Mm-hmm. Worry about what we're able to go build together, because that's what matters, right? Titles don't mean anything unless that's the only thing that matters to you. But if you're really about a bigger end goal, like what's the bigger impact that we're making, none of that matters. And when you and I spoke, and you kind of told me, where the organization was and where you guys are at today, and just the ideas that you had, I felt like, oh wow, I'm like, this is Gary again, right? Like this guy's got ideas like Gary, and I'm like, okay, I got this. But just the world that you created, and then the opportunities that I saw with everything that's happening across in the industry, and the ability to go help agents who are so fear-based right now with what's happening, and to go empower them with an ability to have a value proposition that actually justifies their value at no expense to their client. That's what really got me excited, is I saw an opportunity saying, wait a minute, this is a massive need in the industry. Yeah. I haven't really heard of anyone really dominating this space. This is our time to go make a big play.
Big splash. Yeah, and I think timing was kind of my word for last year, and on lots of different fronts. I mean, the team that we were able to invest in with you and Jason coming on board, like if I did it a year ago, it wouldn't have worked, right? I mean, timing was just, and it's very much one of these connecting the journey moments, one of these God wink moments. I look back and I tell the story, and every time I tell the story, I'm like, kind of like you, like, how did this happen? Like, how did these two guys come together? We talked with Jason's like, you've been planning for this role all along, right? All throughout your career. Same thing with you. You're talking about the experience and the customer service and how those little things make a difference. And what I was really excited about was just you understanding the agent and having the agent voice, because we've been in this, I've been doing this since 2009, right? And we've created this great world that we live in, but I want to go help more people. right?
Yeah.
There's 5 million people, 4 million people moving a year, and we're helping, less than a quarter million. Like, I want to go help more people because moving, like, it's a pain in the butt. Like, it sucks. It's the top 5 most stressful things. You've got professionals along the way to help you, but when you move in the house, you're kind of stuck. So we want to extend that relationship. And I tell you, I mean, you were, saying, I told Jason this the other day. I said, look, when I interviewed, I said, I don't think that, I told him, I said, I had breakfast with you, but I was taking the meeting out of respect for the guy that set us up. I went into the meeting like, this ain't the guy, right? And I don't know if I told you this. I went to our meeting like, I don't know if this is the guy, but I'm surely not going to pass up an opportunity to meet the COO of Keller Williams and all the experience you have in Keller Williams. We very quickly connected on alignment. Like, we were aligned so quickly. And I've said, look, I'm looking to add people to the team that get it, and they've been there and done that. And you check both of those boxes, and the get it was the quickest thing. Like, you understood what we have built, the DNA, and really what makes us special in the market, and you got it really quick.
Well, it's connecting the dots, right? And that's, for me, I've been in the agent world. I understand the struggles that a lot of the agents have, the brokers have. I've been in an environment where I constantly got to hear the feedback consistently. Now it's just connecting the dots. So this is, I've been telling you this since I started here, is I don't feel like I'm working. I'm having so much freaking fun just having conversations with people and helping them with, the empowerment of, hey, we want to add these services to you at no additional cost, and this is a concierge service that we're going to provide to you, and we want to help your agents close more deals. It's been so much fun, and they're like, oh my God, like, where has this been?
Right.
Like, why aren't more people doing this? And I'm like, well, you tell me, and then go tell 10 of your friends to come join us.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. We've been, and again, timing, like, everything we've done up until this point allows you guys to come in and join the team and just hit go. Like, there's nothing to fix. There's a little tweaks, but it's ready to go because we built such a great foundation.
Yeah, what you and Kevin did was build an amazing foundation with the entire team here. And now it's just, let's go build on top of it. And there's going to be things that we got to rebuild, and that's okay. Because, I've been telling the team for the last 2 days, as we've been presenting the 5-year plan to them, is, hey, if we're not breaking things, we're not growing.
Yes.
That's when we need to worry.
Yeah.
And the more we break, we're growing.
Right. And it goes back to the failing, right?
Yep.
And I'll say we've been in a bit of a comfort situation for the past 3 or 4 years. And I shared that with you. Like, I can track back to when I stopped growing as a person and as an owner when the company started to become flat. Yes, you can blame it on the market, but it's so crazy how you can track that back. And so it's so important for everyone and to keep growing because it just changed your life around you.
Right.
It was very weird for me to track that back. And I believed it because I could go back and check on things that when I hit a growth spurt in my personal growth, the company followed. Right. And it's insane. So you probably see a lot of that in the agent world and the coaching that you do also.
Yep. Well, and this is why, I always go back to, what are you doing to improve yourself on a daily basis, right? Everything starts with you. So when you wake up and you look in the mirror, you should be asking the question, what am I doing to be better today?
Yep.
Right. And this is why, making sure that you're learning based every single day and be willing to be learning based is not come in with judgment, not just think inside of your own box or think you always have the right answers, but be open to other people's ideas.
Yes.
Because when you do that, that creativity allows us to grow faster.
Yeah, just other people's perspectives, ideas, and just 100% agree with you. And look, that's one of the reasons why we're really aligned from the get-go. I think you saw it. Yeah. So, if I'm going to ask you this question, I mean, it's been really fun also to see you and Jason come on and be able to talk about our company very quickly, right? So if you're talking to a team or brokers, like, what is the value that Utility Concierge really brings to that team?
Well, to the team, we're a direct extension of their organizational chart, right? I want to be an extension of their organizational chart where we just become a service that they provide, a concierge service. So the way that I've been, having these conversations with the teams is, look, you're going to introduce us right during the buyer consultation or even with the sellers when you meet with them. If it's a buyer, you're going to let them know that, hey, part of the working with me, we provide you a concierge that's going to help you with all of your moving services. at no additional cost. This is the service that I provide as you working with me, right? With a seller, it's the same exact thing. Hey, we have certain services that we provide to you as concierge service, but here's what we're going to offer the buyer of your home. We're going to offer the buyer of your home concierge services to make your home more marketable. No one's thought of that.
No, yeah, I mean, no, because it makes the transition easy, right? It takes that off their plate. And so think back a little bit, like before you heard of us. I mean, you maybe heard some companies like us, but when you were running your team or your team today, who handles that? Like, does it fall on somebody else? What happens when the electricity isn't turned off and it stays in the seller's name? Like, what does that mess look like?
Yeah, it's phone call after phone call because no one does it, right? So the transaction coordinator's chasing people down. The buyer's agent chasing the other co-broke down saying, hey, your buyer didn't transfer the utilities, or whoever, right? It's constant phone tag back and forth, and it's unnecessary calls.
It's a waste of time.
But when you can actually set the expectations and during, you give it to the transaction coordinator or the agent, if they don't have a TC, is, hey, here's what's going to happen next. You're going to get a call from my concierge services, and they're going to set you up and go through a preliminary consultation so that we can understand what are all the services that you need, and we're going to get you taken care of.
Yeah.
That goes a long way.
A long way.
And you don't get the phone calls.
Exactly. You set the expectations. I like to say, when I get to know agents well, I like to say, look, we give you the ability to tell your clients no, because agents can't do that.
That's
right. So we get to up front say, listen, don't worry about your utilities. My personal concierge is going to reach out to you. That's part of the service that I provide. Just take that off your plate. You got enough stuff going on.
That's
Just
right.
Answer the call when they call, and we're going to take care of you. And I like what you said about putting it in the presentations, because look, buyers agents, sellers agents are competing, right? And so you need to have that extra arrow in your hat to make you look different and stand out in the market.
Well, we presented to a transaction management company this past week, and the operations person in the transaction management said, wow, this is going to save all of our TCs a tremendous amount of time, because right now we're chasing to go get all the utility information.
Yeah. And
it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, and TCs, that's not their lane. That's not what they do, right?
Yep.
They need to be focused on, agents need to be focused on revenue-generating activities, and TCs need to be focused on getting that file closed so that person can move in on time. So, well, look, man, I think I've said excited and pumped probably 10,000 times in the past year, but in the past month, but I'm really, really excited about the future, the energy that you're bringing, and really like I said, the agent voice, right? I mean, I feel like we've just been in this little bubble because, we have some partners we work with, and we're all referral based, but I'm really excited what you're about to bring to the table. And, things are going to be really fun in 2024.
Oh, it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. And I'm excited to have you on the team, not only for what you're going to bring to the company, but what you're bringing to everyone else, the energy that all the leadership team, and even down to some of the concierges, the feedback I've gotten is amazing. So I think energy is really important. It's something that you feel, and you're definitely changing the energy in our organization.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time today. I really appreciate it. We're gonna have lots of follow-up conversation, I'm sure. But guys, listen, this is going to go down for sure as one of those connecting the journey moments in my life. And so take the time today, take the time this week to look back and see what got you here today, so you can look forward with gratitude. Hope you have a great day. Appreciate you.